The Justice Emil Short's Commission of Inquiry started its activities on Thursday, and we had some interesting sound bites to play for you over the period. And then on Friday, we had some interesting revelations as well. But there's been some great discussions, I'm sure, also on your platforms, but also on social media and the mainstream platforms, but here on Joy News. And we have to look forward to today's interesting submissions that are expected to be made by those witnesses that will be called before the commission. But for all of it, we've also had some interesting highlights to look forward to. Some of the submissions have bordered on the state of security, and it's led consistently to questions being asked by not only civil society, but also key stakeholders in our country about the state of our security. What a better way for us to do some great discussions on it, but also ask those who have been in charge of security before the trend of investigations, intelligence gathering, and what sort of information that the public needs to know. And today we decided to have some key people who have had some of those great experiences also contribute to a national discourse on security right here in the studio. I have COP Bright Oduro, a former Director General, the CID of the Ghana Police Service, and he's here. Thank you for joining us. Usually we're always speaking to you on phone, and it's always good also to have you in the studio as well. But what have been your impressions so far about the commission sittings and some of the statements from the witnesses since Thursday?
Yeah, I think it's been good so far. There were people who were not happy with the setting up of the commission, but I think by now you would have realized that I think the commission is doing a great job, especially the revelations that we've had so far from some key persons in government and of course the police service. So, you know, the police would have only dealt with the criminal aspect. And so if we have a commission like this, I think they expand the scope of work, and I think maybe at the end of the day, we may see a roadmap towards stopping or forestalling this kind of violence during elections. So I think it's good that the government set up this commission.
Well, so we'll continue the discussions, but let's bring you a wrap on all that has transpired since the period.
EC Chair Jan Mensah, who was the first to testify, told the commission her office is unable to corroborate claims by Observer Group Codeo that a police officer was assaulted by a national security coordinator on the day of voting.
Unfortunately, I have to say yes. I'll have to say yes. Because as I've maintained, you know, there were no armed, masked men at the polling stations. Our reports from the presiding officers at the prisons indicates that there was no alleged assault. There was no assault on the policeman. We have the contacts of the police officers who were there. We also have the report from the regional commander, who after his investigation has also provided us with a report saying that there was no assault on any policeman there.
She insisted that Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election was peaceful as far as the EC is concerned.
You know, there was peace in the polling stations.
So, if I get you right, you are putting on record that as far as security is concerned, the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by-election was peaceful.
As far as the polling stations are concerned, we are well aware that, you know, there was violence erupted in the house of, you know, the candidate of the National Democratic Congress. But I'm saying that as far as the polling stations, the 137 polling stations are concerned, there was no violence there, and there was peace in the 137 polling stations.
The Director General in charge of operations at the Ghana Police Service, DCOP George Mensah, got several mentions during Thursday's hearing on account of his interactions with journalists about the presence of masked national security operatives on voting day. When he took his turn, he was emphatic the operatives were unknown to him.
Lord, I know that there is an attachment of policemen at the national security.
Beyond the attachment, you don't know anything else?
No, my Lord.
You don't know they are the ones called the SWAT team?
My Lord, for now, I know that they are the ones they are referring to as SWAT team.
No, I'm not asking for now. I'm asking, is it something that you know as DG operations?
My Lord, what I know is that we attach policemen to certain units, including the national security, and they use them for their operations.
Have you ever had occasion to call upon the SWAT team to assist mainline police operations?
No, my Lord. No, my Lord.
When you attach these people to the various units, who controls them?
My Lord, once we attach you to a unit, operationally, you are under that unit. You are controlled by that unit.
He added the police-branded vehicles that conveyed the operatives to the Bawaleshi Park were also not known to be part of the police fleet.
No, my Lord, what I've found out is that that vehicle is not part of the vehicles under my command.
Is there any reason for that belief?
Lord, the belief referring to?
I mean, you are very sure that that vehicle is not part of your fleet?
Yes, my Lord.
Yes, and I'm asking you, what informs that? What makes you so sure?
Because I know the fleet of vehicles under the National Operations Department.
The East Legon District Commander DSP George Asari, after telling the commission how he felt surprised to have been sidelined in the operational plan for the by-election within his jurisdiction, said he was subsequently co-opted when the disturbances began.
My Lord, ideally, the district commander in whose jurisdiction the by-election is supposed to be held should be part of the exercise. But in my case, that they had a call around 9 o'clock from my original commander who didn't make me part of the exercise. That he has heard that some shootings are going on around Bawaleshi, closer to the NDC parliamentary candidate's house. So I should go and assist.
Though National Security Minister Kandapa had on Thursday told the commission the SWAT team had fired 6 warning shots, DSP Asari said they found in excess of 20 empty shells.
There were many, my Lord.
Many?
If I'm not mistaken, they were holding them. If I'm not mistaken, it will be over 20 per what I saw.
Okay. And were you able to find out the source of these empty shells? Who had, fired these gunshots? The empty shells that you saw, were you able to detect?
I inquired, but the information they gave me was that they were fired by the task force team that came there.
The National Security Ministers had suggested the warning shots fired by the National Security operatives were in response to gunshots emanating from the property owned by the NDC parliamentary candidate. DSP Asari, however, said he was given a different account.
We're there, and then the security men approached them. That why have you parked these motorbikes here? And one of the security men wanted to take one of the motorbikes, and the people said no. And that was what degenerated into all those.
The commission will continue with its hearing on Monday.
Well, so that's what we're here to do, further discussions on many of the things about security and also some of the happenings at the commission. And COP Bright Oduro is a former CID boss or Director General. And we'll also be coming into the studio, Tanko Musa. Mr. Tanko Musa is a legal practitioner, but also is a lecturer, teaches communication, and is a political strategist with iPoll Ghana. They conduct various polls and various surveys as well. But you look at some of the submissions, especially relating to security and the operations of the police service. Under what circumstances should you be involved in elections that is being conducted in your area if you're a commander of a critical station?
Well, this by-election was one by-election that was conducted.
You're saying it was just one event?
Yeah, one
Not
event.
like the other ones that
Not
we'll
the
see in the
other one,
general
yeah.
election.
But this one was one, and everybody was interested. All the parties were interested because I think they presented candidates. And so it becomes a regional sort of thing. If there is a regional commander, then he may take charge of the by-election. So the regional commander may arrogate to an operations officer, the regional operations officer, to be in charge of the by-election. You know, there were 137 polling stations. And the information I had was that each divisional commander, there are about 10 divisions, divisional police headquarters, and each divisional commander was to present 3 district officers. And so there were officers within Accra who were to be part of the by-elections. And so I think this officer was not one of them, even though some of the polling stations fell under his command. You see, we had the Ayawaso Wogon constituency is a very big one. It's a very big, what do you call it? It's a very big constituency, which covers Tesano, Jowulu, Shiashi,
Abelimpe,
East Legon, Abelimpe. It's a very wide area, and there are 3 divisions. There are 3 police divisions that cover that Ayawaso Wogon constituency. And so picking 3 district commanders from each of the 10 divisions will make about 30 district officers who will be in charge of the elections at the various polling stations. This officer, I was told, was not one of them. I don't know why he was not picked. But if you were not picked, it doesn't mean you shirk your responsibility. Because elections, voting was taking place in your area of command. And if there are problems, you have to deal with. If there are problems and these officers are not there, once it is taking place in your area of responsibility, you need to take action. For example, some of these injured persons were sent to the district police headquarters at East Legon. And once you are the district commander, it is your duty to take immediate action. You look at the extent of injury, and if it requires that you send them to hospital, you make sure that they are conveyed to hospital.
Under normal circumstances, there's always going to be a plan.
Yes.
There will be an operational plan.
There is an operation order.
Okay. You call it an operation order.
Operation order.
So if there's an operation order, and I don't, or let's say a position, and this one we're having a district commander position, is not, or that personality is not found within the operational order. At what point does that commander or individual, based on the role that he plays, say that I'm on the sidelines monitoring the situation?
Yeah, you are on the sideline monitoring the situation does not mean you should shirk your responsibility, because police work still goes on.
But I'll be in my office.
Yeah, you are in office, and some injured persons are conveyed to your station, and you will not take action.
Should that alarm me?
Because police work continues, because there were not, it's not all these police officers who were involved in the election. So if you are not directly involved, of course you must do your normal police work. And if somebody is conveyed to your station injured, you must attend to him.
So you're saying that under normal circumstances, if there was no by-election or election going on in your area, and then the injured people, let's say gunshot wounds, etc., they came with, you would be alerted and know that, and say, look, I need to pick signals and see what is. That's what you're talking about.
Exactly. You're a police officer. Even when you walk around, you see somebody injured, don't you have to attend to him? And you sit in your office, and then injured people are brought to you, and you say you are not part of the election, so you won't take action. It doesn't happen. A police officer, once you are in uniform and then you are on duty, you do what is expected of you as a police officer. You know, and it's not everybody in Accra who will be part of the election, who will be part of this by-election in Accra. It's not everybody. But if you are not selected, it does not mean that you should shirk your responsibility when it is necessary to take some form of police action.
In other words, if you are not part of the election operation or election order, it doesn't mean that you're on holidays.
Exactly.
You are still doing your police,
you are still doing your police
work.
Yes.
And there could be fragments of activities that could fall into your normal police operations.
Yes.
All right. Now, we noticed that there were some bit of inconsistencies with what the police may have picked up especially with, let's say, bullet casings and then what maybe those public appointees, what they had been saying about maybe the rounds of ammunition that had been fired, etc., or the shots and all that. Usually, what is the flow of information per ministerial heads or public heads, and then you, the security apparatus?
You know, there were some contradictions from the testimonies of some of these key appointees you talked about, and of course the police. The police officers on the ground would brief the IGP, and you know the police is under Ministry of Interior. So definitely the IG will also brief the Minister for the Interior. Those that brief the Minister for National Security, I have no idea. But if you look at the testimony of the Minister for National Security and that of the IG and that of Interior, you could see there is some wild difference. He said 6 shots were fired. The police took about 20, more than 20 empty shells, indicating that there were more than, of course, 10 shots, more than 6 shots that were fired. So it depends. It depends on where you got your briefing from. And I'm sure whoever deployed the task force, who were no police officers, might have gotten his brief from the task force. And it's quite certain that they may not paint the right picture to the person who deployed them. I mean, they may not paint the right picture to the minister who deployed them. They may want to cover up.
Okay. But the CID, are they also part of election monitoring?
Exactly, yes. They are there to
okay.
Also
so you're part of the apparatus.
Yes.
And usually when there's an election, you have an election security team or what sort of standards are there?
Yeah, apart from those who will be scheduled to be at the polling station, in this particular one, I understand there were 4 officers in charge of every polling station. Apart from that, there are mobile patrol teams who also go around, who may have to deal with any acts of violence or lawlessness. So these are all captured in the operational order that the police prepares. So we have mobile patrol teams, they will be patrolling, and when they pick up intelligence or they pick up information that something nasty is happening, then they move to the scene to deal with it. So we have mobile teams as well as those on the ground, those at the polling station who ensure that everything is smooth.
How are they controlled, and what sort of collaboration exists or information flow exists with this team and the top hierarchy of the police service, and then the ministerial entities, if it's interior, etc., and then also the electoral commission?
So the police will definitely deal with their superior police officers. So whenever they go around, whatever they see, they may transmit to the regional commander, who in turn may inform the IGP, depending on the nature of the incident. If there is any sort of flow of information to the minister, it may come from the IG. It may be the IG who will inform the minister about the conduct of voting or election. So it is not a police officer speaking to a minister direct.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't. But some people might choose to do it. But it shouldn't be the case. The usual flow of information is from the officer on the ground to his superior, and then his superior to the regional commander, and then regional commander to the IGP, depending on the commands that we have, the command structure that we have.
I see. And so it comes about that for those that you deploy or you have seconded to other agencies, if it could be national security, etc., you don't work in tandem with them.
If we want to use them, then they will be factored into the operation order so that they will be part of the operation. But if we don't want to, this is just one by-election, 137 constituencies, so they could be left out. I don't know what happened in this case. You may not want to disturb them because we have enough men to police the polling stations.
And I've seen you over the years, because oftentimes I've seen you, if it's alongside a presidential activity, you are there, election and all that. So do we get the understanding per what the submissions have been so far to the Commission of Inquiry, that once personnel have been posted to national security, they're posted for this, you don't tend to liaise with them? They take their salary, everything, and the command structure is they receive the command and control is with the entities. Yeah, the
national security normally, I think what we have come to see, national security has some police officers attached to the national security. I mean, some military officers are also sometimes attached, and then they are used for operation. You know, we have senior officers also at the national security who have been on attachment as well. So they may take, the juniors may take their instructions from the senior officer at the national security, and they, like the operations officer said, the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Mensah, they use them for their operations. Once they are police officers, I think they can undertake certain operations that the police normally undertake. So it is not strange. But if you are a civilian at national security, police duties and operations, you are not supposed to be part, because you haven't had the training that the police have had. So you are not supposed to be part of any operation that is to be undertaken by police. If you are a police officer, wherever you are a police officer, so police operation normally, yes, you are at national security and it's an operation, and you can be, if it is for search, yes, you can be used. If it's for arrest, you can be used, because you have still the powers of police wherever you are.
Now, at the end of the day, it looks like the public seem to assume or conclude, based on what they have heard, that we're not in grip of our security, because it looks like those institutions that have serving public officers or appointees do not have a grip as to what really may be happening in the proper structure of security, if it's the police, etc. And so the public seem to think that we're in a state of nobody seems to be in a grip.
This incident at Bawaleshi was unfortunate. That is how I see it, because once we draw up an operation order, and then certain officers have been captured, picked up to ensure the smooth success or the success of the operation, I don't think somebody should also deploy, somebody somewhere who is not within the scheme of affairs should also deploy people to a polling station or to this by-election, because we have, the police already had their plans. So if somebody had any interest, I'm sure he should have told the police that this is what is on the ground, this is the information I've picked, and therefore capture it in your operation orders of it. But to deploy troops or to deploy task force when the police virtually is not aware, I don't think that is why we've had so many problems about this by-election, because operation order, these are the officers who are to be on the ground, these are the officers who should take part, and the police did not expect anybody from outside to also be part of, because they have not been captured in them. What is their role? What are they going to perform? Nobody knows.
You're saying that there's per your experience,
yeah,
it hasn't happened that you've been part of an operational activity, or maybe at the fringes monitoring, in which we've had other personnel within a certain security structure of our country come in also to do monitoring or also do their work?
Well, if you monitor
outside the operation order.
Yeah, if you are monitoring, it's a different thing. You know, we have this.
No, we're not talking normal monitoring. We're talking about them because they came with arms and all that.
Yeah, you cannot be part of the operation, because you have not been captured in the operation order. We don't know you. So ordinarily, the police should have moved in to maybe stop them. But you know, they also came with police officers. So it appears that there were police officers who also were aware of these people, even though they were not captured in the operation order. But there were police officers who drove them. There was a police officer, I understand, who brought them. So outside the knowledge of the police, some people were quietly being roped into a scheme of affairs, and that presented the problem, because we draw our operation order and then we spell out the rule of officers And so if you are not captured in, or if you do have no role to play, there is no point you should also be there.
Do we have personnel, let's say CID, etc., who are also, let's say, they are also seconded to institutions like national security, etc.?
For now, I don't think.
No, during your time, I mean, your experience.
We have police officers, national, I think, passport office. There are several institutions that we have attached or we have seconded officers to. So it's
and
not,
usually when they go, you don't know what they are doing.
They are under the unit that we have attached them to. They are not under us. And as I said, there are some officers also there who they will report to. If we attach, there may be a senior officer you will report to, and then the senior officer may also report to the head of the institution.
Well, let's go back and get some of the comments also coming from some notable personalities. The Minister for National Security will also try to see whether we'll get some soundbite from some police heads as well, if it's possible. And then we'll also get some soundbite from the Minister of the Interior. When we're ready with some of them, we'll also get to know what sort of consistencies there are in the submissions that have been made. Let's start with Mr. Kandapa.
Mr. Chairman, there is a special unit at the Ministry for National Security, SWAT team, we call it. And I want to say that it is not of a recent creation. It's been part of the national security architecture of this country for years, probably 20 years. It has uniformed policemen. And I'm told there were occasions where there were uniformed military personnel and also uniformed personnel from the immigration service. They also have some national security operatives who assist them in the discharge of their work. In recent times, since we've been there, the team is made up of policemen and some national security operatives. I believe the number of policemen that we have today is about 25 of them. But as I said, there always has been a SWAT team. The national security operatives who support them, who help them, are part of the national security operatives, informants that we normally employ. We have about 1,000 such operatives in the country, and they are deployed.
Mr. Chairman, because of my training as a lawyer, I'm careful about these things. But you would excuse me to say that I later got information that there was an officer of the national security had said that they were security operatives. So, Mr. Chairman, I do give this as evidence of the fact that it was said. I do not give it as proof of the contents. But I was told that somebody at the national security said they were members of the private security. And from what I saw, they were wearing T-shirts that had NSC. That is what I know.
Has it come to your notice that on the day these said masked armed men were in police vehicles?
It had come to my notice on the video that they were in a vehicle that had the police logo. That was one of the reasons why I forwarded the video to the IGP, and he denied that that was not a police vehicle in use by the police. And he in fact told him, Minister, our vehicles have GP. What is the GP number? It is not our vehicle.
You have said this, and I quote, that we deployed men, and some of them had masks. It is not like they came from somewhere. They were just engaged and put there. They were part of the setup that we deployed.
That is true. I am a minister of state in a ministry. And if my director of operations tells me that they have deployed men, I am part of it. But I did not give the order that they should. And that is why I use the word we have. Because I know that it is my ministry that has deployed the men. That is what I'm battling with. All the attacks on me in the last 1 week, that everywhere Brian has deployed men, Brian has deployed boys, Brian has deployed this. Mr. Commissioner, I wasn't even in town. I wasn't even in town. 10 minutes ago, I read a Joy FM report filed in this room, I suspect, that said, Ayawaso by-election, police deny that vehicles are theirs. In the report, they were very emphatic. Men deployed by Brian Champong. In the report, filed 10 minutes ago, a security expert on City FM quoted me just like you're quoting me, that I have deployed. I called him after that. I said, Mr. Doctor, did you hear my interview? He said, that is what they're saying on radio. So you didn't hear my interview? No, I didn't. So why are you quoting me? Oh, okay, then send me the video and let me go and do corrections on your file. So I said we. I said the ministry. I said national security. But I never said I have deployed the men as it's being suggested. I will want to hear where this is coming from.
And following that, we've had many interpretations by members of the public. But the thing is, we have official communication or message from people who are supposed to be responsible for entities. And if activity is undertaken, what sort of information do you as security people tend to give those who are the ministerial heads? Or it has to follow a certain chain of command?
Yeah, I think I've explained this already. The men on the ground, they also carry walkie-talkies and the radio communication gadgets. So the men on the ground will inform their superiors. If we have district officers also patrolling, monitoring, and then we have commanders, the operations commander, and then we have the regional commander, and then we have the national headquarters operations, deputy commissioner of police in charge of operation national. So these men will be communicating to their superiors, and then eventually IGP will also have his share of the information. It is the IGP who will then link up or inform the minister about what is happening. And it depends on the nature of the information or the incident that has probably cropped up. So it's not a police dealing directly with a minister. The IG may brief Minister of Interior. If the Minister for National Security so wishes and then calls the IG for briefing, the IG may also brief him. But normally the briefing goes to Interior, just like what we heard from the Interior, that according to his information from IG, that and that and that occurred.
Okay. But if they have allied or parallel institutions that are also within the security sector, how do then they have to share the information that is...
The police is in charge. And we have...
Let's say we have defense, we have national security.
Yeah, the defense does not fit within this.
Exactly.
Because defense,
but we have national security.
national, that's what I said. Interior and national security. But the IG may prefer briefing the ministry under which the police is, you understand. So you brief the Minister of Interior, And then if the National Security Minister wishes to be informed about what is happening, then he may call the IG for briefing. This is what I'm saying. Those that we have, or those that have come to assist the police are only supporting. So they are not in the primacy, they are not playing the primacy role. It is the police.
You the police, do you go through election monitoring or operational drills, training?
So yes, if it's a national election, a whole lot of things that occur. Training,
you do simulations and all
yes,
that?
Yes, a lot of things occur. But this is a by-election which can be easily contained. That is why they draw up operation order. And then the men are briefed. Sometimes, even in some by-elections, candidates are even called to police headquarters and for officers to hear them and then know what plans they have and so on and so forth. And then we also tell them the plans that we have for the by-elections. Some by-elections we have done that. And so there is a whole lot that has to be undertaken before we deploy our men for such election duties.
Do you, the police, do you also have people with hooded masks and all that, like the way we're seeing?
I've never seen that before. Maybe.
How long were you in the service?
Almost 30.
You never saw your personnel?
No, somebody hinted me that he saw some policemen marked at some time when they were, I think we formed a specialized unit or special unit or so. And I just counted immediately that, but they were not on duty. If they were displaying and shouting and marching and dancing and so on, and they prefer to be hooded, that one is different. Because if you are on operation, we want to see you. And I've always explained that even in certain countries, you see policemen on duty with cameras and somebody monitoring his performance, his conduct, wherever he is put on duty. So policemen become more professional because if you do something bad, somebody there is observing you. And so how much more would you expect a policeman to go in masquerade like that, to cover his face? Are you going to do something bad? We want to see how you perform. And then you see a policeman with his number, you see a policeman with the name, and then this time we even have the duty, what do you call it, badge, or identifying the police officer. And once you have been put on duty, everybody expects to see who is on duty. So that if there is anything untoward, if you do something unprofessional, then you can easily be identified.
In the service, before you are taken on, maybe recruitment, and then after your behavior or the code, can you pierce your ear, have tattoos and all that?
No.
What's the code?
No. Tattoos, maybe the tattoos should not be seen, because have you ever seen a policeman with tattoo all over his hands like that, like the footballers we see? If you have tattoos, you may not be taken. And even the women, you see the kind of earrings they wear, very little. You don't want to see policewomen in that heavy.
Men,
no. Men, even if you pierce this, it may not be considered ethical. I mean, we want men to be men, and men normally don't have to pierce their ears and so on. So we don't have men with this piercing, and we don't also have this masquerade or something in our quartermaster stores, because we don't. This is not part of our uniform.
Well, let's go on the line. We also want to look at what the public opinion is and how this could mar people's own commentary and judgment and opinion about the state of our national security. And so we have Mr. Tanko Musa. Mr. Tanko Musa is a legal practitioner. He teaches as well, but also is a political strategist and is associated with IPOL Ghana, and they conduct polls, of course. Good morning to you, Mr. Musa.
Good morning, my brother. How are you doing?
Charlie, I'm great. Now,
sorry, I couldn't be in the studio.
No, that's okay. And now, with you also being a political strategist, with IPOL Ghana, you conducting surveys, engaging people's public opinion, how do you think, so far, the commentary, the witness submissions, and the associated commentary on social media and mainstream media could influence either positively or negatively the judgment or the opinions of Ghanaians about our state of security?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, clearly, I remember indicating that the call for the proceedings of the commission to be made live had its own plus and minuses. The plus is that we get to see what is happening. There is transparency, there is openness in the proceedings. But the downside is that if you are not careful, things would be put out there that may eventually demonstrate to people that, as a matter of fact, our security system is not as it's supposed to be. And that is what is happening now. And therefore, clearly, we need to be very careful about the way we run commentary on the institutions. Clearly, there is a lot of contradictions, and there is some demonstration that our institutions need to up their game. But there is a research, I have mentioned that issue before, there is a research that was conducted when the European Union went through those credit crunch. And the research was titled Loose Leaf Sink Market. And basically what that research was demonstrating is that if you are not careful and you run commentary about your institutions, no matter how genuine they are, no matter how factual they are, if you are not careful, eventually it would have a detrimental effect on those institutions. And unfortunately, those are the institutions we have now. So irrespective of what we are seeing now, we need to point out those flaws if it needs to be pointed out. But out of that, we need to come out with solutions in terms of how to make it better. But we should be very careful not to really end up damaging the credibility and integrity of those institutions, because we still need them. We still need them. Whatever it is, we still need them. And therefore, we need to be very, very careful. But frankly, what we are hearing, what we are seeing is not really pleasant, and people naturally are really worried and disturbed about what they are seeing.
With your agency, you being associated with iPoll Ghana, and since we know they conduct polls, etc., is there any intention or are there polls that are ongoing to gauge public confidence in security in our country?
Yeah, I mean, usually what we do with the iPoll is that when there are any current issues, we try to see what the public opinion is. Because you see, we need to start moving away from the situation where people would sit in the comfort of their offices and then craft policy. Policy should be led by people. People should be part and parcel of policies and all those things. So what we are trying to do is to see, based on what is happening, what are the public talking about? What is the public's perception of what is happening? And what are some of the suggestions? Because sometimes the suggestions don't necessarily come only from the technocrats. There are ordinary people who might have certain things that they want to also prefer that would go a long way to push things. So yes, we are planning to come out with those sort of pull together the situation, the people's perception of what is happening.
But there seems to be a lack of synergy in communication content or messages that should have been coming from institutions that are in charge of security, either political state institutions or just normal national security institutions. How?
My brother, you are absolutely right.
What should have been the synchronization?
You are absolutely right. But you see, it is not only a flaw within the security agency. It is a situation that cuts across. You know, our institutions don't talk to each other. You know, you can go to GRA, you can go to the ministry. We don't talk to each other. And so as a result of that, people exploit that sort of unfortunate situation. And the reason why this thing is happening is because sometimes there's personality clash as well. So because there is personality clash at the top, everybody wants to protect his or her turf. And because the person is protecting his or her turf, the person wants to demonstrate that he or she can go it alone. He or she can do it alone. And sometimes we have to call a spade a spade. Sometimes they put people in positions above their superiors. And so when that happens, what happens is that they say, you know, like the typical, okay, so it's your best me, and there is some element of sabotage. There is some element of people not working as a team. And when you don't work as a team, this is exactly what has to happen. And I am glad that this commission has been set up, because it's not just about trying to indict people, but I think out of this commission, what we're going to have is that we're going to try and see how best we can move away from what we have been doing. Because if we don't use this commission to change the way things are done in the past, then I think we're going to really, really hurt our system. But clearly, there was no, you could see that there is a gap in communication. There is no coordination. Even, I don't know whether I have time to say this, but I listened to the commission's proceedings, and even the electoral commission, the head of the electoral commission, she made a statement that made me think, wow. If you recall, the electoral commission chairperson, she said that she didn't provide briefing to the police because there were no flashpoints in the A.W.W election. And I thought, oh my God. By-elections itself, when you look at the antecedents of by-elections, by-elections itself is a flashpoint. So you can see that this is where the problem even emanates from. The fact that the Electoral Commission itself didn't see the by-election as a flashpoint, as a trouble spot, for them to provide the necessary briefing to the police itself was going to be a problem. So there is a lot of things that we really, really need to synchronize. If we don't do that, there will be problems. It would be really, really, really a big problem.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Tanko Musa is a legal practitioner, but also a political strategist. He's a lecturer, and he's with IPOL Ghana, and they're planning to conduct a number of polls on the perception of the ordinary Ghanaian about national security. But we have to wrap up with our discussions with COP retired Bright Oduro, a former CID Director General for the Ghana Police Service. Now, it looks like this seems to be the tipping point, even though we've had some niggling issues when it comes to consistently by-elections and elections in our country. At the end of the day, the commission sittings, what would you want to see for the recommendations and then the actions that we need to take thereof, based on what you have observed so far? Your years of experience, elections, by-elections, and now this.
Well, I don't want to preempt or prejudice whatever the Commission is doing. But I think that the perpetrators of the violence, the lawlessness, must be clearly identified. And then, of course, I think there should be some sanctions, either punitive sanctions by way of prosecution or whatever. I think I want to see something like that to serve as a deterrent to others who may be tempted to do that in future. So I also want to see that by-elections that eventually threw us into violence and so on and so forth stopped. I mean, the violence that characterizes by-elections, there should be a roadmap to forestalling or stopping the violence. In that manner, I think I want also to see that these vigilantes or task forces that the parties have are denounced or they are stopped from operating as a group and then creating or causing terror among the populace. So I want to see something like that. And I also want to see politicians being advised not to nurture such forces in the future. These are the things, but clearly I want to see identification of those who were responsible for this and then some punishment being recommended for them.
Well, thank you very much. We've enjoyed the discussions, and also Mr. Tanko Musa, the legal practitioner, joining us, also attached with IPO Ghana, looking at what the trends of public opinion will be on the state of our national security, obviously. But we've had in the studio Commissioner of Police, retired Bright Oduro, is a former Director General for the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service, helping us do some great discussions and analysis so far, pair his experiences and what usually the ideal situations are when it comes to security of the sort that is under discussion. But please also know that the live proceedings of the Justice and Short Commission of Inquiry will still be on live here on Joy News from 10 o'clock when they start. And Aman Joseph Akable will bring us concrete analysis, and for us in the studio as well, we'll do a bit as well.